Welcome back to Coaching Genius Live. So if you're new to our channel, do remember hit the subscribe button and the notification bell and joining all our friends here from around the world. So we're going to look at the minimum skill level for your submission. Now, this all of you would have, but I'm just going to make sure that point is out to you for you as you prepare for your minimum skill level. This is crucial, okay? You must know this, and you already have this as well, right? You can find this on our, you would have this as well on ICF website, and you would have this in your competency waiting list as well. Now, for those of you who are going through your PCC, you would have your own individual one, right? Because I've given to you all individually. This is for ACC people, okay? So what you look at is this minimum skills requirement for ACC credentialing is going to be important for you to think about as you're preparing. So you're going to listen to your recording as you come for your weekly practice, our group practice. Essentially, all of us are on different journeys because some of you may be working on different competencies as compared to the rest. So you want to work on those competencies accordingly to where you are currently. So for example, this is one, the reason this document is created is to support coaches in preparation for the ACC credential performance evaluation. For those of you on PCC, I would have given you all the documents you required for it, so just focus on those. Okay, now this is important for ACC, especially because you want to know exactly what you're looking for. So for example, ethics and guidelines. One important note is this: to be familiar with the code of ethics and its application and requirements for at all levels of coaching, and standards of demonstrating a strong ethical understanding of coaching is similar and rigorous for all levels of ICF credentialing. So at any point of time, if you're doing very strong consultative approach, then you will have failed the whole recording, no matter which level you're at. So an applicant will pass this competency if they demonstrate a knowledge of the coaching conversation that is focused on inquiry and exploration, and if the conversation is based on the present and future issues. So you're not staying in the past too much. Doesn't mean that we don't talk about the past. You can talk about the past, but you will not stay and dwell on the past too long. You're taking the lessons of the past and moving the client forward. So an applicant will not pass this competency if the applicant focuses primarily on telling the client what to do and how to do. That is consulting mode. Or if the conversation is based primarily in the past, particularly the emotional past. That's a therapeutic mode. So is it okay to go in the past? Yes, but you don't stay there. Okay, so in addition, ICF notes that if the applicant is not clear on basic foundation exploration and evoking skills that underlie the ICF definition of coaching, the lack of clarity in skill use will reflect in skill level demonstrated in some of the other competencies listed below. For example, if a coach almost exclusively gives advice or indicates a particular answer chosen by a coach is what the client should do, trust and intimacy, coaching presence, powerful questioning, creating awareness, client-generated actions, accountability will not be present, and the credential at any level would be denied. So this is a quintessential thing for us to remember. So if you attend any of our programs, I would have said this many different times, that you are using inquiry to draw from the client, not giving the client a particular form of direction for them to choose. Okay. Now, for the establishment of coaching agreement, the key thing you want to do is the depth of creation of the agreement in the session. So you want to make sure that the coaching agreement is a sessional agreement. It must be clear. Right? If you have to express it out clearly, you must set it clearly. Okay. And the coach ability to partner with the client and the depth of partnering with the client in the creation of agreement, measure of success, and the issues to be addressed. So these few things: creation of agreement, what do you want to focus on today in the session, the measure of success, how do we know we have done something well together, and the issues to be addressed in this session. For example, Mr. Klein, coach, I want to focus on losing weight today. Great. What would a successful session look like for us? Well, for one, maybe I have a few ways to discover this. I'll get clarity about why I want to lose weight. I want to know 5 steps I can move forward to losing weight. So the measure of success, quantitative, qualitative, the issues to be addressed. What are some underlying issues there? We talk more about this in our video. So do remember, check our videos up here or down here, our playlist. So I go more in depth in all these competencies. But what's the key here is these 2 skills are evaluated for competency number 2. Okay, so at the ACC level, the minimum standard skill must be demonstrated at a passing score is that the coach asks the client what they want to work on, and the coach attends to the agenda throughout the coaching session. A coach will not receive a passing score for the establishing of the coaching agreement on the ACC performance evaluation if the coach chooses the topic for the client, or if the coach does not coach around the topic the client has chosen. So that's going to be important for you to note. This is exactly the same as your ICF competency rating list. Remember, the ones with the column is exactly the same thing here. Okay. Now, in competency number 3, the skills evaluated are the coach depth of connection to the client, the coach depth of demonstration of trust in the client and in the client's process of thinking, creating, the coach willingness to be completely comfortable with their own authenticity with the client. So one of the things you want to do is to show genuine care, support to the client, and you're attuning to the client's perception, learning styles, personal being, personal well-being, and providing the basic support at all the different levels, okay, at the basic level. You don't have to go too in-depth, but you can support the client, right? So you will not receive a passing score if the coach demonstrates significant interest in the coach view of the situation. For example, the coach says, oh, in my opinion, I think that's not right. In my opinion, that's not right. In my opinion, I think 10 million. I never say 10 million. You said 10 million. Nobody said 10 million before. Who said 10 million? Okay, so for example, now if the coach is only interested in their own view, then you will not receive a passing score. Okay, so you want to attune yourself to the client's agenda rather than your agenda. Now, in coaching presence, this is something that's going to be very, really important. Two of the skills you're going to be evaluated are the coach depth of partnership with the client, the coach depth of observation, and the use of the whole of the client in the coaching process. What does that mean? It means that you want to look at you want to attend to the client's agenda, seek information from the client about the agenda, responsive to the information. So when you hear maybe a hesitation, the client goes, and you hear a bit of hesitation or a bit of frustration, and you're hearing that with the client. Or when you see the client's body language, his posture is going down, his energy is dropping down, you want to articulate that to the client. So many of you notice a shift in the client, but you want to articulate out because the assessors cannot see the client. They don't have a video of the client, but you are seeing the client. So you want to articulate what you're seeing. Mr. Klein, as you were sharing with me, I noticed that there was a little frown on your forehead, and as you start telling me about this, I'm just wondering, what's going on inside of you at that moment? Were you feeling frustrated, for example? So you can inquire into what's happening in the client's world like that. Okay, so that's something important for you in coaching presence, being present, but yet articulating out to the client and giving space to the client as well. So if in the coaching recording, all the time the coach is asking questions after question after questions without giving space for the client, then probably you're not demonstrated that well enough. Okay, now let's take a look at some of the questions that you might have. Yes, you can look at it in the ICF website as well. Okay, now look at this, active listening. Okay, active listening, the coach depth of hearing what the client says in relation to the client agenda, the coach ability to hear on multiple levels, including both the emotional and substantive content of the words, the coach ability to hear the underlying beliefs, thinking, creating, and learning that are occurring for the client, including recognizing incongruities in the language, emotions, and actions. The coach ability to hear the client's language and to encourage the client to deepen descriptive language for themselves. Quite a whole chunk there. I give you an example. Today I was watching a parliamentary, maybe an interview, right? So one of the journalists went to ask this particular leader and said, hey, can you tell me more about this issue? And I noticed that the leader's eyes was always moving down and moving to the side, and it's always hunching, and he was not really confident in his speech. Now, if you notice that, you can reflect back to the client, hey, Mr. Klein, I noticed that as you were sharing me this, I can't help but to notice that you were finding a bit of a challenge to express what's going on inside. So I'm just wondering what's happening there for you. So incongruency can be seen in the expression of the client and what is said by the client. And we see that all the time. In leaders, in politicians, in our clients as well. Sometimes what they say, what they believe are two separate things. And when we see the incongruencies, we need to highlight to them in the language and emotions and actions. So language, emotions, and actions together as one. We talk about that in our class as well, right? So if you have not attended our class, or you forgot our class, or you want to sign up for more, do remember to sign up again. Okay, so that's going to be important for you to revisit that. Or I cover this as well in our YouTube videos. So we have a lot of YouTube videos to watch. We watch them as well. We talk about this as well. Okay, so powerful questioning. One of the things we're going to look at is the depth of questions that evokes the core issues that are either contained in or underlie the client's agenda. What is underlying the client's question? What's the problem underneath the problem? The coach ability to explore with and to evoke exploration by the client of the emotional substantive content of the words. The coach's ability to explore with and evoke exploration by the client of the underlying beliefs and means of thinking, creating, and learning that are occurring for the client. the depth at which the coach's questions provide a thinking space for and elicit new perspective from the client. So if the client is thinking in one pathway, when you are asking the questions, are you helping the client to expand new horizons? Are you helping the client to think of new ways of thinking about the subject? So it's not so much about telling the client, but using questions to create insights for the client. So for example, oh, you must be feeling like this. You must be doing this. You must be doing that. So that's telling. You want to use questions to draw, and you want to create insights for the client. So even comments that you give must create insights. Inquiring versus telling. Asking versus telling, right? Questioning, not the question itself, but the questioning process. In direct communication, some of the things is the ease and directness and the depth by which the coach shares perspective, thoughts, intuition, and feedback. Mr. Client, is it okay if I share with some thoughts and intuition? Mr. Client, is it okay if I share with some observations that I have here? So whether the coach appears to have attachment to the coach's perspective. So sometimes some of us as coaches, we have a very strong attachment to our perspective, or the client must be feeling like this. So we impose our perspective on the client, right? So we need to release that attachment, all in all, and a coach's effective use of the client's language and learning models. So how we use the client's learning styles, how we use the client's languages is going to be important, because we can use that. For example, if the client tends to repeat things like yes, 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 yes. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Or if the client tends to repeat a particular phrase, a particular word, you can reflect back to the client. And for example, if the client's learning style, it's very visual, then I use a visual predicate for the client. If the client's learning style is very auditory, I'll use auditory predicate. If the client's learning style is very much kinesthetic feelings, I'll use a feelings approach. You can find out more about this in our videos called the eye patterns of the client. So find the link below in our videos. Now, another thing is also the breadth of the invitation of the coach gives the client to share his or her perspective of thoughts, intuition, and feedback, giving that space. So, Mr. Client, would it be okay if I share with you some of my thoughts? Would it be okay if I invite you to consider some of the things that I'm observing of what you've just shared so far? Would it be okay if I offer some of my observations, and you're free to explore with me? Okay, so you're offering that to actually allow the client to take that and expand further. Really, the underlying premise of direct communication is to evoke the awareness for the client. So thereby creating awareness for the client. And this is where we talk about the 5 layers of learning. The coach's ability to fully partner with the client in the exploration of new, broader perspectives, learnings, and creating an action. The coach's ability to share perspective without attachment, inviting the client to share their own thinking, perspective, and intuition. That's the learnings from the client. The coach's invitation to and accepting the client's intuition, thinking, and language as critical tools in the coaching process. And the coach's ability to illuminate the client's fixated ways of thinking that might inhibit growth or accomplishment of the client's goals without treating the coach's observation as truth, but also as the coach's thoughts. And the coach's ability to use the client's language as tools of creating awareness, and the coach's ability to integrate beginning, middle, and end of the session together, if appropriate to the client's learning and creating. So what we're doing here in this process of of creating awareness, it's really about driving the learnings and extracting learnings from the different parts of the exploration process. Now, it doesn't happen at the end only. Sometimes in the process of discovery, you may draw learnings from the client in different levels. Now, if you want to relook at some of these things we cover and more in depth, do check our videos on creating awareness in the 5 layers of learning. And one of the things you want to do as well from the coach perspective is to offer your intuition to the clients. Okay. Now, at the ACC level, the minimum skill level that must be demonstrated is the coach is focused on inquiry and observation, generally drawing the learnings from the client and exploring that without a strong significant attachment to the coach outcome. So you're not directing the client to a one particular way of thinking, really it's the client's where the client wants to be. Okay, so that's where we're moving towards. For designing actions, the key thing you want to look at is the ability to fully partner with the client in designing actions that relate to and move the client forward towards the agenda. The actions are of a breadth and depth that may include thinking, feeling, and learning. That the design actions integrate the whole of the client whenever appropriate. That the design actions are appropriate to what occurred in the session where the client is with their stated agenda and the desired outcomes, that the design actions are appropriate to the client's methods of thinking, learning, integrating, and creating. So that's what we're going to look at, how we partner the client forward and move them in the skills. Okay. Now, planning and goal setting is also going to be very interesting because we're going to look at Partnering the client to create goals, plans that match the client's learning and creating style, stated agenda, and desired outcomes, that the plans and goals designed are of the breadth and depth that may include thinking, feeling, learning, creating, that the design plans and goals integrate the whole of the client whenever appropriate, that the design plans and goals are appropriate to whatever or what occurred in the sessions and where the client is with their stated agenda and the desired outcomes, and that the design plans and goals are appropriate to the client's methods of thinking, learning, and integrating and creating. That wherever appropriate, the coach helps the client design measurable achievements that are steps towards the client's ultimate desired outcome. So really in the planning goal setting, it's really about designing little parts, the timeline, the little small steps the client can take. How do you know that they're achieving this goal? How do they know that, what are the supporting things they need? What are the potential barriers that they may face? What are the additional resources that they can tap on to really support them in achieving the outcome? And lastly, one of the important things is here, which is managing progress and accountability. So this is a part where you're going to create measures of progress to hold the client accountable to themselves for the progress. So at the end of the day, accountability is they can account to everybody, but the responsibility of the action is the client. So the client is not saying that, oh, the coach, it's your fault because I'm not able to achieve this. The responsibility is on the client, but the accountability process you're designing with the client, that the methods and structures of accountability integrate the whole of the client whenever appropriate, that the design structures and the methods of accountability are capable of producing forward movement by the client appropriate to what occurred in the session and to where the client is and with the stated agenda and desired outcome, that the client's methods of thinking, learning, integrating, creating, the coach's ability to trust the client to be accountable to themselves and confidence in holding the client accountable as per the agreed upon methods of accountability. So Mr. Client, I'm hearing what you said you're going to do. Coaches, I'm hearing what you say you're going to do. All of you are committing yourself to producing excellent ACC, PCC level recordings. And you're going to do it by the end of this year for all of us here. Okay, so you hold them accountable. And the way you do it is also to tie in with the next session. So Mr. Klein, in the next session, how would you like me to check in with you? Or what would you like me to check in with you? Are there anything else that you'd like to explore? Okay, so the methods of accountability to make sure that you structure them in this session, and when the next session we come together, how would you like me to check in with you? What would you like me to check in with you? Okay, so this is going to be important, integrating all these different components. So there you have the ICF minimum skills requirement for the ACC credentials. Very simple, right? Different process, all these things. Some of you actually have gone through that before. I've covered this in the class as well, in our 4 days program, in our 12 weeks program, and some of you who attended the PCC program as well. For the PCC people, you're looking at the PCC behavioral markers as well. So those are the different sub-points of each of these competencies we can look at in more details. So you would do that separately. For the ACC people who are looking at the ACC programs, you're going to look at this minimum skill level to practice your skill sets in all our group coaching session. All of us are at different pace, which is fine. You're all running your own race. But you hold yourself accountable by looking at which part you're at, which are you still missing, which is still not clear for you. If it's not clear for you, check out some of the videos on our YouTube channel. We have a lot of videos on there. If the videos, you find that then you find that a particular question is not being addressed, feel free to pop your request in our chat group here and say, hey, Jedidiah, can you give us more examples of this particular site? How do we demonstrate that? Can you give us examples of that? Then we'll create some videos and additional resources for you to support your learnings and growth. Okay, good. Now we can open the floor to any questions that you guys may have before we conclude today. Anyone have any questions? Simple, lost. Gopalan is very happy because he's on track.
Very useful, Jedi.
Okay, no worries, right? So this one I'll be putting up there on the on YouTube, so you can rewatch them, and also all of you would have the files all on ICF website. So now the key thing is really about integrating with yourself. So you're gonna look at your transcript, look at the markers, look at the competency rating list, and see where you are at by the competencies, right? If you try to match them all together, it's going to be very messy for you. So I would say work competency by competency. Always start the competency number 2, which is your coaching agreement. If that is messed up, usually the rest will be quite messed up. Yeah? So work with competency number 2, which is your coaching agreement, before going with the rest. And then if you're going to choose the next competency to work on, I always recommend work on presence and active listening. these two, because with these two, then your powerful questioning, your direct communication, and your creating of awareness will be there. Those are the premise on your active listening and coaching presence. Then once you've gotten that first part correct, then focus on 9, 10, and 11. Okay, 9, 10, and 11 sometimes are the weaker part for some of us, but 9, 10, 11, it's the simple part, which is actually designing of actions, making sure that there's the timeline, using the SMART goals, getting the client account to their progress and everything. Okay, but defining the start is going to be important, and practicing that and looking at your own progress for each one of us. Okay, each of us. So again, it looks very nice here on the competency list, but when you're actually doing it on yourself, it might be a bit challenging. So I want you to practice. All of us are at different phases. So look at your transcript, practice them, and reflect on some of the observations. And that's how you do your own self-observations as coaches. Okay, so good. Any questions before we end tonight? No? Good. Okay. Thank you everyone for tuning in today. It's Friday and it's time for us to have some whiskey and some wine and celebrate today, right? This is the start of July and we're going to have a great celebration in July. And do remember that, or do check out our Facebook page for all these updates as well. And stay tuned for the new videos that come up in the subsequent weeks. Okay, have a good rest, everybody. Until next time, this is Jedi here at Coaching Changes Lives and all our friends here tuning in together. We'll see you very soon.